This is the Business of Apps podcast, bringing you actionable insights from the leaders of the global app industry and the world's fastest growing apps. You can find more app news, data and analysis over at businessofapps.com.
Welcome to the Business of Apps podcast. On this show, we invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. And we promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast platforms where you can find us, I strongly encourage you to do that. Once you subscribe, you will be getting episodes of this show on your device as soon as it's available. In this episode, we have Luisa Zuleta, growth lead at Sago Mini and Toca Boca. Luisa, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is great to have you on. Thank you for coming. So, I usually begin every episode with setting up the stage, and I'm gonna do it right now again. All right. As so many app developers and publishers would agree, growing an audience for an app is a challenge. Nothing is static. You find a new marketing channel that works for you, and for a while you feel like you can finally breathe again freely. But then it becomes crowded with your competitors, and the app industry-wide change happens, like Apple's introduction of ATT framework, and back to the drawing board. But today, Luisa will tell us a story of what it takes to scale a subscription app for kids. And if you feel like it should be even more challenging, you're right, it is. But first, Luisa, before talking about the challenges of your app scaling, tell us about yourself and your background in tech.
I guess strictly in tech, I started working 9 years ago. In a past life, I used to do tech sales, actually selling cloud migration, architecture, and consulting services. But specifically in apps, I started around 6 years ago here in Canada, a smaller studio called Big Blue Bubble. They do have quite a famous game called My Singing Monsters. So that was my introduction to UA, and ever since, after in Gameloft, I got a chance to work with RPG games, as well as Big Blue Bubble puzzle games and some simulation. And then I landed on the kids and education category, same for UA, but a completely different landscape and monetization avenue. I was used to, IAPs, and now working primarily with subscription services, which is quite different.
So you started your journey in UA with monsters. This is terrific.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about the apps you've been working with right now. My daughter is 18, so I'm no longer your target audience for a long shot. So I know nothing about your apps. So tell me about them, please.
So Sago Mini is part of Spin Master Digital Games. So Spin Master is a toy and entertainment company. They now have a part that's dedicated to just digital games. So they bought Sago Mini, Toca, Boca, and other studios in the US. Mainly, Sago was founded 11 years ago. Is a subscription-based play-to-learn apps for kids from 3 to 5 years old. And so far, we have a little bit more than 100 million downloads globally. And Sago Mini's kind of philosophy is to think of laughter and fun helps kids learn. So the three products of Sago is Sago Mini World, which is focused on gaming and just giving kids a playground to explore. So the best way to put it is different worlds where kids have a digital playground to pursue whatever they want to do. There's no winning, no losing, nothing addictive about the games. Sago Mini School is more focused on education. So early literacy, math, sciences, and that was launched in 2020. And then Sago Mini First Words is a speech app. It helps kids with special needs as well develop their speech. So those are the three main products that Sago Mini has. Last year, we launched a customer-facing brand, which is called Picnic. So Picnic is aiming to offer one subscription for parents where they can access all of the apps instead of buying specific subscription for each app. So that's everything we're doing right now at Sago Mini. It's quite a lot.
Yeah, it is quite a lot. And you're saying that the games are based on the principle of introducing something for kids that is fun and engaging. And yeah, I would say it works for every age till the very late. Like we always love the stuff to be fun, but I understand that it's extremely important to get the kid engaged at that age, especially to actually progress with what the app is intended for. So it should be engaging, it should be fun. Now, in this conversation, we will be talking about the Apple's SKAD network impact on your app's growth. But first, let's point out that your app's marketing was already limited before SKAD hit. What were those limitations?
Yes. So when you're advertising and producing kids apps, you have to face two sides of regulations, COPA for the US and GDPR for Europe. Those regulations affect not only marketing, but also the app development, publishing, what kind of data you can collect inside the apps, and also monetization strategies. You won't see a lot of kids apps that run ads. Sago Mini doesn't, but there is a bunch more of regulations if you want to show ads to kids. So for us, what that meant in marketing when I came on to Sago was we didn't really have the capability of sending in-app postbacks after install to any partner. That affects you in your ability to run different types of campaigns. We all know in Google Ads or Facebook, you can run campaigns that are optimized towards purchases. That was never the case for Sago. We can't share anything a kid is doing inside the app. And so that made it so our campaigns were really simple. We could only run app install campaigns, and we didn't have that visibility as to what are the UA users that we're bringing doing specifically inside the app. For us, it was always the exercise of we're running app install campaigns, and then we look at the entire user base that we have and we see how they're monetizing. And it was the IDFA what let us do that. So we couldn't use it for targeting, lookalikes, anything of that that everyone used to love to use. We didn't have that, but we did have the IDFA to at least know how our installs were monetizing. So yeah, it was very different. I remember when I joined, just realizing how good the product was, just in the sense of not being able to run a campaign where you're telling the algorithm, find me the user that's more likely to buy. And still, the campaigns were quite profitable in the US, which led me to believe that we had a really good product in our hands when you can just run app install campaigns and it works.
Yeah, the product itself shines through and allows you more freedom of in your marketing because you're not like I think Apple's principle always been the product itself should be great and the marketing should be on par. But even when you are limited with your marketing options, the product can lead you forward. And you mentioned this legal limitations in Europe, and not limitations, but the legal procedure you have to comply with. This recent Digital Markets Act, does it have any effect on you guys?
It does, but I think the the thing is we designed the apps in a way where we're complying to the highest degree. So say we're looking at COPA and GDPR sometimes is more aggressive when it comes to kids is someone
Yeah.
who's below 18. So we always tend to go for what the harshest, I guess,
Mhm.
regulation is to make the rest of the decisions in terms of app development and marketing. So we're usually ready for things. So when something new comes, such as SKAD, and we'll talk about it, I guess, in a little bit. But when new regulations come, we're sort of shielded already because we've developed things that are already to the highest level of compliance. So it's kind of, it's our haha moment where we see everyone scrambling around with things that we already had to figure out a while ago.
That's smart. Guys who are listening to us, take notes. You gotta be ready for what's coming by sticking with the highest standard, and this is what will make your future not that heavy and less anxiety, more confident in what you're doing when you're sticking to the, like, not the worst case scenario, but whatever the most demanding environment will be in the future. So if you're ready for that, that will not come as a surprise to you. Now, describe us the moment when SCAD became reality. How did it shift your app's marketing strategy? What solutions did you guys identify to work your way through that disaster?
Yeah. So, like I said, SKAD happened to us before it happened to everyone else. So I believe SKAD was released in April 2021. For us, we lost the IDFA in October 2020, Kids Apps. So I remember it was a point in time where people were starting to talk about what's going to happen with this, like how do we prepare for this? For us, it was just one build of our app that was rejected by Apple, and they said, you're mentioning the IDFA, you need to remove it. So essentially, we had to figure out how to make things work until SKAD was released. And that's when we started working with probabilistic attribution. AppsFire actually really helped us a lot. They created a custom SDK for us so that we can remove any mention and collection of IDFA and still attribute for those months. That was something that was custom made for us in order for us to be running. So we were out for about 2 weeks of not running any UA, and then we were back on. Which is like interesting because right now we can't use probabilistic since SKAD has been available because that's not compliant for kids. And 2 years later, I see other app, colleagues scrambling a little bit about probabilistic and when is it going to be gone. We already went through that. So again, that's kind of like I guess the sensation and the topic when you're working for kids apps. You're just 10 steps ahead and you're forced to figure it out. SKAD helped us in the sense that we never had access to that post-install data thing. So SKAD was making it easier for us to have a post-install event in the first 24 to 72 hours, which was something that we didn't have. But the problem with SKAD for kids apps is that kids apps can't have an ATT prompt. So again, it was another thing where, kids cannot consent to be tracked or not. They don't understand what they're
Right.
consenting to. So when I would join webinars or try and talk to other people in the industry, everyone was worried about the adoption rate. And that wasn't even a thing for me, right? So we quickly learned that the way to work through this was just trying to find our own solution. And that's what we do at Sago. I know that that's what most of our competitors in kids apps do. You just try to figure out something that works for you and not look too much outside because what everyone else is doing is not applicable to us at all.
Yeah, so it's one thing to be aware of what other people are doing, your competitors, your peers in the industry, and there are other just copying pasting what their actions into your portfolio of marketing actions, which is not wise. It's always, you have to have a filter of what of those things apply to your specific marketing campaign and what would make sense and be efficient for you. So I got this question for you. If like that situation, well, the so to speak post SCAD network world, what had to change in your approach to your apps audience with that situation?
So with SKAD, to sort of work towards something that would work for us, we realized that we needed to start looking inward, learn how to be adaptable. And also, after that situation with AppsFlyer, we realized that one of the biggest things that has helped us so far is building relationships and creating category advocates. And that's what we did with AppsFlyer. We've been working a little bit with Google as well. Because newsflash, everyone's talking about the Google Ad ID. We already lost it back in June. We already worked through it. And right now it's similar to SKAD, where we're waiting for the privacy sandbox to actually move to something that is for the entire industry. So it's one of the big things for us, creating, building relationships with partners, because Kids Apps is not the biggest. I guess we don't have a lot of power in the industry, and people are not building things for us. You kind of have to make friends with different people in the industry and sort of like convince them to want to work with you. So that SDK that AppsFlyer built for us, but also other solutions that they have built in order for us to be able to attribute and use SKAD and start using, you know, Facebook again and open up TikTok this year, are all things that they have created like a side SDK that's fully compliant for Kids Apps. And a lot of that has been a co-creation between like Sago and AppsFlyer, of we tell them what our problems are, and now they are able to provide this solution for more and more people. I know that there's other partners that are doing that for other MMPs that are doing that for other Kids Apps, but I think finding a friend in the industry that can help you out is really important. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Especially guys like AppsFlyer. I have some people from the company on the show. We know them, Business of Apps know them for a while as the great company that's one of the leading companies in the app analytics field. And yeah, and in your case, having them on your side as the partner was a great thing for you to overcome those obstacles. Now, there's such a thing as marketing funnel. Everybody, like anybody who works in the app marketing field, understands that we work with this proverbial marketing funnel. It's not a real funnel you're using to, put an oil in your somewhere, but you reach out the wide audience of people who only introduced to your product. Then you gradually kind of narrow down the funnel to the limited number of people who actually become your clients, your loyal clients who become your subscribers for your app. So let's talk about the reworking the marketing funnel for your games, for the apps you've been working with. Um, how did audience or thinking impact your marketing funnel?
Yes. So for us, that was sort of like the second strategy. So first, we know that we have to have category advocates, but the second one was, in absence of a lot of data points that we didn't have when SKAD appeared, and without an entity prompt, you realize that we only had purchase that we could track in the first 24 hours. And then we didn't have much else. And we realized that a lot of people in the industry have kind of like outsourced their marketing efforts to an algorithm, be it the algorithm of Meta or Google. And we realized that if we are not going to have visibility of all of our marketing spend, we need to know where to spend this money, and we need to know it by knowing our customers. So we conducted some customer interviews. We took a closer look at our user base. But the thing with Kids Apps is that you have two people that you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to the kid, and you're trying to get to the parent. And the parent is someone who's actually not playing in the app. So it's not like any traditional gaming app where you look at your user base and you know that the user that's most engaged is the one who did level 1 to 3 in the first 20 minutes and then or bought this pack or this or that. It's not applicable. Sometimes you could have a parent of a 4-year-old having a strict screen time of 2 times a week. So in your eyes, that could be a user that's not engaged, but then maybe they stay subscribed for a year, which means that they really like the product. It's just that the parent is gatekeeping that access to the app. So in that sense, not a lot of those data points are really useful for us when it comes to understanding our customers. And we decided to just not try and pretend to use algorithms and realize what our customers wanted. And we learned that for when it comes to parents, they really need to trust. And our current customer base of parents told us that what's most important to them is to feel like their kids are safe and that the product is actually beneficial for them. And I think there's a lot of, shame that happens around parents when it comes to screen time. I could argue that sitting your kid in front of a TV, just passively consuming something as opposed to something that engages their brain is better. But those are things that I didn't know until we sat and we talked to parents, right? So understanding who they are, where they're spending their time, and also the process of they hear about a lot of apps or a lot of kid services for their kids, but they only go with the ones that they can actually trust. So that was big for us. We realized that, okay, if we can't track all of our marketing dollars, we want to spend it on this new funnel of we're gonna create a lot of awareness in parents and we're gonna get them to trust us, and then hopefully they're gonna convert. Hopefully when one of those kids sees an ad in a game, a Barbie game, and they download it, when the parent sees what they're playing, they're gonna understand that it's a brand that they had seen already. And so it's a leap of faith for sure, because we're used to be able to track everything. But we said, at that time, for SKAD, because it works now, but back at that time, the Meta, it was Meta, any self-attributing network wouldn't work without an ATT prompt because they needed that little piece of data to kind of model out the rest. So Meta for installs would work for us. And we still made a case of, we need to be in Facebook and Instagram we need to be talking to these parents. We need to get them to trust us. We need to create landing pages, which we had never done before. And we need to give parents free printables so that they can print it, color with their kids, and learn about our brand so that if they later find an ad, they're gonna install it. So it was, we didn't put a lot of our money into that, but we put some money on it and we just committed to let it run. And we had our designers create those printables that parents would print every week. They could also subscribe in our website and with their email so that they could get those printables. And then we would connect it to our CRM and sending them information about the product. It was just a more holistic, I guess, approach where we have our CRM team, we have our social team, but I hadn't, as a UA person, I had never worked with them so closely. And now it was more so about like, help us talk to these new parents. And so we did that. And what we saw is that actually it affected our LTV positively. If you look, we were looking at a chart with our cohorted LTV, lifetime value of our subscribers. And we saw that right after we started spending that money on Facebook and Instagram, that according to the books was doing terribly. Our LTV actually improved. And what that shows us is that it's not just about like bringing the customer and getting them to buy, but someone who has strong brand affinity is more likely to keep subscribing and paying every month. Because there's one thing as I pay once and then I don't pay for the next 3 months and then I churned. So when you invest earlier in that brand trust, even before you acquire the user, you can sort of ensure that they're going to stick around for longer once they make that decision to buy. And that's what we realized when we started seeing those LTV numbers go up, which in turn affected our profitability. So that was that rethinking of the audiences and not being so married to that purely performance marketing thing of letting the algorithm is telling me to go for certain users, but actually to step back and look at the type of product that you have, who are your customers, and then going based on that a little bit more, yeah, holistic. It worked really well for us.
Yeah, I think two things come to my mind when I'm listening to you. Number one is that we human beings, human brains are still in charge. Algorithms cannot be in charge of our actions anywhere, including marketing. You still have to process the dynamics of interaction between your app and your audience. And number two, it really amazes me. I didn't realize like, how complex it is when uh, UA marketers may complain about how it's hard to um, find the right audience, engage the audience, but usually it always involves one person who's sitting in front of the phone or a tablet, and that person usually like, I don't know, 20, 20 something, 30 something, 40 something, 50 something, but not in the age of 3 or 5, way before he or she can make her own decisions. And there's always this second person, probably the third one, the father, mother, both. You have all of a sudden you have multiple people on the other end for every app install, and you have to be able to balance this interaction and see like what should be communicated to the parents, what should be communicated to the kid, what will be like very clearly see the interactions along the way of using your app over time. And it's like paramountly important to for apps, subscription apps, because you need to, so to speak, win hearts of these people month after month after months. Otherwise, your business will just collapse. It's not going to be sustainable. You will be, really glad after the first months, but then you realize people are just churning away and everything is going south. So yeah, these dynamics of interaction for kids, excuse me, apps that are developed for kids is really amazing for me. Now,
You have to think about everything. And I
yeah,
think because we started creating creative that was some creatives that we do, some ads are for parents and they talk about the things that we know that they care about. And a lot of it is also for kids because when we're running on ad networks, we know that it might be a parent who's getting the ad if it's in a puzzle game, but it might be a kid who's getting the ad. And we run weekly playtesting sessions here in Toronto where we have our super fan parents bring their kids and they play and we learned about what they like. And when I was speaking about this in the App Promotion Summit in San Francisco, I was telling you that we do try to add farts in our ads because kids like it's part of our game. Kids love it.
right.
It's like it just comes with that understanding of both our main customer is the kids, because if they're not engaged, the parent is not going to pay for it. But also then you have to bring the parent and tell them, no, this is actually good for your kid and these are all the benefits and it's been proven and we work with educators and all of this stuff. So it is quite complex for sure.
Yeah, speaking of focus group testing, it has always been suggesting that you have to test your app in front of the audience, but more or less you can kind of guess that you're, trying to guess the psyche of a person or more or less of your age. So you kind of know you kind of have a chance to assess, to estimate what will be interaction of that person with my app, but you have no idea what it feels like to use your app when your brain is 3 or 5 years old. So that interaction with kids in person was really awesome. Yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. Let's talk about the results. What did you guys manage to achieve after you applied those solutions?
Um, we saw that increase in the LTV. We were able to decrease our cost per acquisition for 28%. I think it's just all of the things that we did. Honestly, not just the rethinking the audiences, but the new campaigns, the new creatives, um, new sets of expectations. So it all resulted in us decreasing that CPA by quite a bit, accessing more channels as well, and increasing that LTV, which in turn allows you to be able to, when you have more LTV, you can pay more for that user in general. So we were being a little bit more bold sometimes with the bidding and strategies. So that's what we saw.
Sure. Perhaps some takeaways from other folks who are kind of in the same shoes as you are, guys. What would you like them to know after they finish listening this episode? Like takeaways of your experience.
I think understand your product really well. It would be that would be the first one, and how users interact with it. You have to map it. So from our end, it was understanding that how parents and kids interact with the app, and kind of like map that customer journey, and then decide what KPIs you want to be tracking from that customer journey, and then where do you have to run your campaigns to fulfill that customer journey. So it has to be, I think UA has to start becoming more a thing where you're thinking about your own product, and then think about how to do UA for your own product, instead of just doing what everyone does in launching 1,000 campaigns in 1,000 ad networks, and without like aimlessly. So I think that be a first mover in that sense. When you're focused on your own product and you understand it, it's easier for you to find solutions when problems do arise. And plan for the worst. I think for us, this was such a big success story that we had about SKAD, and then all over again, June last year, we lost the Google Ad ID, and here we go again, and we know that something else is going to happen. Like, you can't be getting too comfortable with what you have. So I guess for us, the North Star is, don't take it for granted, and know that something might happen. Be a first mover, and have talent in your team that's willing to think differently. And I think sometimes that's the thing. People just want to have things stay status quo. So I think that that's where a lot of the pain in the industry is coming right now, where they just can't let go of certain events or certain ways of measuring things. And that's why, and when a SKAD happens, so let's figure out what the adoption rate is going to be, and how can I, mask my ATT prompt so more people say yes, so that I can keep my same data, instead of just trying to, go with the flow of the change and figure out how to make it work for you. I think those are the biggest takeaways for me.
Thank you. Got it. Now, I like to ask this question to every guest who have been in the industry for a number of years. Because there's just something that if you have been in the industry for a few years or more, there's something you can say in reply. Looking at mobile ad tech today, what would you like to change about it the most, aside of AT&T introduction and Sandbox from Google?
I think more clarity sometimes, as to more clarity and democratizing the information a little bit more. I think that a lot of the pain that has come with the changes is how cryptic sometimes big companies like Apple and Google can be. And then we're just like, the rest of the world is just left scrambling around and trying to figure out a solution. So I think that simplification of procedures and yeah, I think it's just simplifying the procedures, the information when it comes to changing and democratizing that a little bit more. I think that's what I would like to see the most. And an AI tool that helps us navigate those changes, that would be really nice to have.
Right, I hear you. Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, this is the first part of the show, and we're switching to the second quick one. Whenever I have a guest who is first time on the show, I use this chance to ask a few quick questions. So we're not only covering the topic at the table, but letting our audience know a little bit better my guests. Here we go. What smartphone do you have now? Have you been switching between these two camps or on one side all the time?
No, I used to have Android when I was living in Colombia. It's more common in South America. And then when I moved to Canada 6 years ago, I had an iPhone. So that's what I have
Uh,
right.
yeah, gotcha. Now, before the era of smartphone, do you remember your first mobile phone you could put in your pocket?
It was a Nokia. I can't remember but it was the big one that had where you can play Snake. I remember that Nokia. That was my first phone.
Yeah, I
It was,
guess that Snakes should be somewhere in the museum as the first game on the mobile phone that people can still remember, no matter how many games are on the market right now.
I think someone
Uh,
recreate the Snake game again for iPhone. That was the first one of the first phone games that ever existed.
yeah. Now imagine you left your home for whatever reason, you forgot your iPhone. It's sitting on the table somewhere. You're out. What is the most missing feature for you at that point?
Messaging for sure. And yeah, messaging for both personal and Slack. It would be yeah.
Yeah, got you. Okay. Perhaps there's something missing in your phone right now, which it's not like you're looking at the trendy things that people are talking about, but there's some feature, hardware, software that would make your iPhone a better tool for you. It can be anything, just to make it work for you better, like for your life.
Mm, Better screen protection. I'm dropping my phone all the time. I think a phone that sustains me let it be like dropping it on the floor all the time. And I also lose my phone quite a bit. So something like Find My iPhone, but something that lets you know when you're kind of like not around it anymore in some kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, this is like when I got the AirTags from Apple, I thought that they would be alarming me every any moment I'm like away a few feet or a few meters away from the thing. I put the that tag on, but it doesn't work this way. You have to be away like 100 meters away from anything you attach the AirTag on, and I don't feel it's quite what I was expecting for uh, from the device. So yeah, I can totally see what you mean by the iPhone. It should alarm you like somebody's stolen your phone, or you're just you left it somewhere and you're leaving. And should be aware of that thing immediately.
Yeah.
All right, before I let you go, very final question: how can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
On LinkedIn, Luisa Zuleta. You can message me over there.
All right, this is great, Luisa. Thank you so much for spending time with us and being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. And that was Luisa Zuleta, growth lead at Sago Mini and Toca Boca. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps. You will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays. So subscribe and you'll be able to get new episodes on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated, and all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Apps podcast. For more, head on over to businessofapps.com.